What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and the brand, the basement, is here to stay. I heard you guys loud and clear yesterday. Everyone in the comments saying the intro, welcome back to the basement, is solid, so it's here to stay. Now, getting into what we're going to talk about today, you guys know I'm kind of a psychopath when it comes to drafting for upside. I'm looking for upside. I'm trying to really push the limits, go hero RB, wait on RB2 to later on in the drafts. But there are certain scenarios in your fantasy drafts where it makes sense to shoot for floor. So today we're going to talk about my favorite top 5 bust-proof picks in fantasy football. So make sure before we get into that, go down below, subscribe, and leave a like, especially if you're new, man. I'm going to be covering fantasy football on this channel daily from now through week 1. And then we're going to be covering that weekly stuff like start sits and waiver wire pickups from week 1 through your championship, so I can help you guys, bring you guys along for the ride as we all go out here and cash our championships.
Go help us.
Let's go.
Hey, Mr. Under, you running to my mama, please tell her I said say something. I'm starting to believe ain't no such thing as heaven's trumpets. No after over, this is it done.
Someone I can't stop drafting is Darren Waller. I'm kind of buying into this idea of drafting a tight end early this year because, you know, I think that there's a massive gap between a guy like Kittle, Kelsey, and Waller, and then that next tier of where you have like Kyle Pitts, Hawkinson, Andrews, and then even after that, when you're talking about like Fant, Goddard, I want to have that advantage, especially in a league where you start like, let's say, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. When you only have so many players centralized in your starting lineup, you need to have each and every single one of those players be absolutely elite. And if you trust yourself, you know, if you follow along with the channel and you know the guys to target late, if you spend up on a tight end, you're going to instantly have somebody in your tight end spot that gives you a massive advantage. And the advantage with Waller is you're essentially putting a wide receiver in your tight end spot. He was the wide receiver 8 last year with 17.4 points per game. And where his floor comes in, that bust-proof profile, is that he had a 28% target share and 146 targets. Both of those numbers ahead of Kelsey. Not only was a 28% target share ahead of Kelsey, but it was 4th among wide receivers as a whole. The guy is legitimately a wide receiver that is listed as a tight end. He's 6'6", 255 pounds, and runs a 4.46. He looks like a wide receiver, he runs like a wide receiver, and he commands targets like a wide receiver. And he has this massive floor because of the targets, but there's even room to improve for him to kind of hit his ceiling a little bit. Last year was literally his 2nd season playing tight end full-time. He's still learning the position. So while he is 28 years old, you know, he's a little bit older, he still has room to improve because he's still kind of learning the nuances and the in and outs of tight end. And then now we have Nelson Aguilar, who was the best wide receiver on the team last year. He leaves. You guys know I'm not a huge believer in these rookie face planners like a Henry Ruggs and a Bryan Edwards. I think that Darren Waller is going to be the main wide receiver on this team. And obviously he is going to be the main wide receiver, but because there's no target competition, in my opinion, he's genuinely in the conversation for a 30% target share. You know, something crazy for a tight end where he could hit a tight end 1 ceiling. And Waller, for me, why I'm so high on him is he feels a lot like Kelsey, where Kelsey would take him in an uncomfortable spot in the 2nd round, you know, that mid to late 2nd round, and he paid off huge. He had a 20% plus win rate last year, which is like a legendary win rate from a tight end. I think we could see that with a Darren Waller because we're getting him in that mid to late 2nd round, and he could have such insane volume from a target standpoint that he could just be a league winner. Then we have Keenan Allen, who I've been shying away from because he's a definition of a floor play, but I'm kind of coming around to the idea that that's okay. You know, each of his last 3 years, he's been nothing but super consistent. 137 targets at the least, 97 to 104 receptions, and he's finished somewhere between wide receiver 7 and wide receiver 13 in points per game. And he's going to do the same thing again this year. He's going to have 140 plus targets with a 17-game schedule, 145 plus targets. He'll be wide receiver 8 to 14, and I love him in builds where I either start RB, so like a bimodal RB build, or I go RB tight end. So when you have to get your wide receiver 1, instead of, you know, betting on a guy like a CeeDee Lamb, which I'll do in like tournaments, but if it's a normal league, I don't mind locking up your wide receiver 1 as Keenan Allen because you're going to get a lot of stability there. He's going to replicate top 12 production pretty easily, and his floor comes from the crazy amount of targets that he sees. He was 5th in target share last year with 27.1% in year 1 with Justin Herbert. So now we're going into year 2. He's going to be Herbert's favorite target again. And there's this possibility where, I know this is a bust-proof video, but I like kind of outlining the ceiling that a player has. Keenan Allen could have a Stephon Diggs type 2020 where we're not factoring in his quarterback taking that next step, where with Josh Allen, he took that next step, was like an MVP candidate. Stephon Diggs went crazy. If Justin Herbert takes a year 2 jump and vaults into, you know, the MVP conversation and he finishes like top 3 in MVP voting, Keenan Allen could finish as a top 5 wide receiver off of targets, off of touchdowns, off of efficiency. He could be that guy. I've been beating the drum all offseason that running backs don't really have safe floors because of injury, but if one running back did have a safe floor from a production standpoint, it'd be Chris Carson. He was hurt last year, but he finished as the RB11 in points per game, and he was the RB12 and the RB16 the 2 seasons before that. He hovers around that back end RB1 range, and that's where he'll stay. And he's a great target on underdog fantasy for best ball teams. In best ball, you want to have bankable RB production while you can just get 4 to 5 running backs and you can just get like 10 wide receivers. You can stack up those spike weeks in your flex. He's perfect for that bankable RB production. And if you haven't tried it out, go to Underdog Fantasy. It's the best place to prepare for your fantasy football draft so you can go out there and dominate. You can use my promo code RON when you deposit $10 or more. You get a $25 bonus, which then gives you $35 to mess around with. You can do 10 $5 puppy drafts, and you can draft against actual people, experienced people with money on the line instead of, going to ESPN or Yahoo where there's 12-year-olds, people time out after the 5th round. And if you can go out there and really, experiment, you can go out there, use bimodal RB, zero RB, hero RB. Go out there and experiment. Don't just go into your home league raw without any, practice, or you only have practice against the CPU and then you come in there and it's like, this isn't what I expected at all. Go draft against people with real money on the line. Try Underdog Fantasy. When you deposit $10 or more, use my promo code RON for a $25 bonus. Now, Chris Carson doesn't have top 5 running back upside, but he's a nice option to anchor down high-end RB2, low-end RB1 production, and I especially like his outlook in 2021 with new OC Shane Waldron. I covered this in a video last month. I love this Seahawks offense because I'm really excited about Shane Waldron. He's going to bring in Sean McVay type concepts because he comes from Sean McVay's offense. He was the passing game coordinator for the Rams the past few years. He's going to come in. He's going to run things more efficiently. And I think that they're going to skew a little bit more towards the run, which is good for Carson, and they're going to be hyper efficient. None of this Brian Schottenheimer, inefficient offense where they hit the wall in midseason. This is going to be a nice, fast-paced, efficient offense. The buzz out of camp has been really encouraging. Chris Carson has a quote saying, "The key is that everything kind of looks the same. Run or pass. The above matches what Sean McVay does." Carson also said there is more running back out wide stuff. I'd guess empty. This is really encouraging because now we have a modern offense that these Seahawks are coming into. They're going to be motioning running backs out wide. They're going to be disguising run versus pass, and the whole thing's going to run very smoothly. And on top of that, they're going to get more plays in. So we're looking at more rush attempts from a pass to run ratio standpoint. We're looking at more rush attempts from an overall play perspective. The Seahawks were 23rd in pace in 2020. The Rams were 5th. And expect Waldron to really get these guys humming. They go up to the line, no huddle offense, and really, crank things up from a volume standpoint. So Carson's going to be in this role where there's going to be more rush attempts this year, and it's also going to be more modern, where he's been motioning out wide in camp, and he set a career high in receptions per game last year, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if we see Chris Carson in a role where he gets more receiving work and more rush attempts than last year, and I have him pretty much locked in. I think that from a median outcome perspective, he's probably going to be around RB11, RB12. This list is just full of unsexy players, and I think Allen Robinson is one of those guys. He is, you're pretty much getting what you're paying for when it comes to Allen Robinson. I'm not thrilled to draft him. I have done it before. But in the mid-3rd round, when CeeDee Lamb is gone, McLaurin is gone, Keenan Allen is gone, those guys dry up, I'll snag Allen Robinson at like a wide receiver 12 price tag. He just has a nice floor. Each of the last 2 years, he's played 16 games, seen 150 or more targets, and has finished between wide receiver 9 and wide receiver 13. At that price, that's really all we can ask for. And this was with Mitch Trubisky the last 2 years. I think we kind of forget that he's done that through bad quarterback play. And what we don't understand is that if Allen Robinson was on the Chiefs, or if he was just on a good offense, or like on the Seahawks, we'd think of him as an elite wide receiver. The guy beat man at a 97th percentile and press at a 96th percentile. He is a legit route runner. Now he has Fields coming in, so I'm excited to see what Allen Robinson can do with a legit quarterback upgrade. Now, obviously, Fields isn't a massive upgrade, but it's a pretty good one. And he's deadly accurate, and any volume that Fields takes away with his rushing ability, I think he makes up for with efficiency. And I think the hidden upside with an Allen Robinson is that he's 6'2", 220 pounds. So he's this big alpha wide receiver, yet he's only scored 6 receiving touchdowns and 7 receiving touchdowns in his last 2 seasons, despite being utilized heavily in that part of the field. He had the 4th most red zone targets last year and only had 6 receiving touchdowns, which is insane. And it just speaks to how inefficient and bad Mitch Trubisky was in the red zone. We've already seen through preseason games that Justin Fields is going to be deadly in the red zone, rolling out, finding guys in the back of the end zone. He is going to see Allen Robinson there, this big receiver, and he's going to get him some touchdowns. There is a world where Allen Robinson gets 150 plus targets and 10 touchdowns and finishes at like the wide receiver 6 to 9 and gives you a really solid fantasy season. I wanted an excuse to finally talk about Ronald Jones, so we've got him on this list. I've never been high on him. I hated him coming out. I didn't love him last year, but I think that he's really solid for, the kind of builds that I have. When I go 0 RB or hero RB and I want to lock in, I just want to lock in points. And that's what Ronald Jones gives you. He's a really high floor RB2, RB3 kind of guy. Last year he finished as the RB21 in points per game on 978 yards and 8 touchdowns in 14 games. He probably cracks 1,000 yards if he plays a full season. And the reason I like Ronald Jones is because I think that his role is very secure. He is the clear between the tackles guy. He's going to see the majority of the work on first and second downs, and Gio Bernard is the passing down running back, and then I think Fournette gets the change of pace work. And the reason I'm so confident in that is because Rojo is so locked into this role because he's genuinely a good pure rusher. And when I mean pure rusher, I mean guys like Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Gus Edwards, Damian Harris, these guys that are very good pure rushers, have this narrow skill set. Well, not Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb can do more than that, but Damian Harris and Gus Edwards, these guys that are very good between the tackles. Rojo averaged 5 yards per carry last year, and he scored really well in yards created over expectation per attempt, which is one of the best metrics we have for running backs. It pretty much just takes out all the noise of offensive line, situation, all of that, and it's just how many yards are you creating despite your situation. He was 7th among running backs with elite names at the top. You have like Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry at the top. He was 7th. Then we look at Gio and Leonard Fournette. They were bottom 7. So Rojo was locked into this grinder role where he's clearly the best rusher on the team, and I want that role on this team. When we look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we have a top 5 offensive line. We have a high-scoring, high-powered offense. I want the guy that's going to get the between the tackles work, going to get some of the goal line work. He's in play for 1,000 yards and 8 to 12 touchdowns. Now, that's going to do it for today. Let me know what you guys think about those. Do you think those guys have high floors? Am I kind of, out of bounds on a couple of them? I would say all of them are pretty bust-proof picks from my point of view. Now, make sure, go down below, subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed the video. And I want to let you guys know, we're live streaming every night leading up to kickoff. I'm going to be live streaming tonight once I'm done recording. And we're just running mock drafts, man, getting everybody prepared for the fantasy season. So make sure you guys are on the lookout for that. And as always, man, I will see you guys in the next one.
To think I could have almost died. Lord help us.
Hey, Miss Donda, you running to my mama, please tell her I said say something. I'm starting to believe ain't no such thing as heaven's trumpets. No after over, this is it done. If there's a heaven, you would think they let you speak to your son. Maybe she has in the form of a baby's laugh.